to be presenting to you all. It's people like Sustainability Champions is one of the reasons that my wife and I, Jo, started Giki 3 years ago. And we started with an app that rates supermarket products, but people kept on saying to us, we want something that covers our entire life. And that's where we came up with the idea of Giki Zero. And it's currently in we're previewing it with a few people to basically get feedback, see what works, what doesn't work. In tech terms, that means it's in beta. In real life terms, that means it doesn't always quite work as it should. So really keen to hear what you think and get any feedback afterwards. And the reason that we built it and that people are asking for it is because we all face such an enormous challenge. This shows the global emissions back to the Industrial Revolution. You can see where we are today, and you can see where we need to be by 2030. That's the same level as emissions before the Second World War. And for people in the UK, it means we've got to cut by up to 80% between now and 2030. So a huge task ahead of us. And then obviously we've got to get to net zero after that. And when faced with that task, a lot of people say, well, what can I do? What can I do that's actually going to have an impact, and what's everyone else doing at the same time? And what Giki Zero wants to do is to provide a sort of a step-by-step guide to help people put together the sustainable life that they're after. So in a few minutes, what I'll ask you to do is kind of click on the link, sign in, set up an account, and answer a few questions, and then I'll sort of go off mute and I can sort of take any questions as that happens. But I also just wanted to give you a quick overview of what you're going to see when you first get into the tool. So one of the first things you'll see is your dashboard. And what your dashboard does is tell you how big your carbon footprint is, how that compares to the UK average, and the target, where we need to get to if we want to lead a 1.5 degree lifestyle. But it also breaks down your footprint into some different areas. And the reason we want to do that is to really start highlighting to people where are the big areas that they can make a difference, where are the things that they can take steps that work for their life, their budget, and as a result start to get these numbers down to the target that we will need to reach. But the good thing about the target is that we do have a while to get there. We've got a decade. So this tool isn't going to make you sustainable overnight, although I know many of you are very sustainable already. But it is going to help, I hope, people start on that journey that's going to take them weeks and months and probably years. So you'll see your dashboard, and on your dashboard there are a couple of things. There's obviously what your impact is, how far you are above target, and this one here which says if everybody was like this person here, how long have we got left until the world runs out of its global carbon budget that's going to limit warming to 1.5 degrees? And certainly in the Western world, it often tends to be a pretty scarily short number. But importantly, we also then want to provide some suggestions to people about what they can do about it. So here we've got 5, and we've got lots more in the app. So you'll see your overall suggestions and your footprint. But then one of the things you can do is then really dig into it. So the onboarding questions that you will do will ask some pretty simple questions to kind of get you going. We use UK averages where you don't enter the information, but in here, in your footprints, you can add basically all the data you want, whether it's about the bus journeys you take, whether that's the food waste you have, whether it's about your water usage. And I just wanted to give a couple of examples of those. The first one is just the diet footprint, where you can put in a diet that explains kind of what's closest to you. So there's the typical UK diet. More and more people are giving up red meat. And some people are going vegan, but actually many more are going kind of mainly plant-based. So maybe sort of plant-based 90% of the time, and then 10% of the time when they'll eat, whether it's fish, red meat or anything. But if you really want to, not that many people have done this frankly yet, but you can actually put in exactly what you eat, go into a different footprint and put in the portions of food that you have. We've also done some fun things like carbon footprint your cats and dogs. So if you've got a cat or dog at home, you can stick that in and see the impact of their diet. And then dealing with some of the The big areas like flights. So you can either put in an estimate of your flights, short, medium, long haul, or you can actually put in the destinations that you're expecting to fly to this year. And I guess with so many strange things going on with coronavirus, I probably sort of encourage you to put in the data for your normal life rather than your lockdown life, because that will give a more representative footprint for the future. But then when you've put in some of the stuff in the footprint, the key thing is what your footprint is really important. It's really useful context. It's a starting point for us to work from. But then we need to know what you can do about it. So here what we've done is researched over 100 different actions that people can take, and we've ranked them on difficulty and we've ranked them on impact. So what is easy, and we're always looking for the ones that are easy and cheap with massive impact. Those are obviously the best. But then there are plenty of other ones in here too, so do have a dig around in there. We've now hit 114 that we've researched, and we're continuing to add them, partly, frankly, as a result of discussions with people like you who come up with some really good ideas for how people can cut their footprints. And then within the actions, if you want to dig into them, we kind of give a little bit more detail about the why. The why in the short version seems to kind of get most people over the line. If I can save money and I can save carbon, well, that sounds like a pretty good trade-off for me if all I've got to do is turn the lights off when I'm not in a room. But then going into a bit more detail as well. Now, when you do an action, you can do one of two things. You can commit to it, say, look, I'm going to give this a crack, and then come back in the future and tell us how it went. Or you can say, look, I already do this one. And if you spot some of those, do click on them. Because if you do, then you start winning badges and kind of seeing some progress in the web app. And within the action plan builder, you can see those same suggestions, but you can also see the actions that you're taking. And we'll actually send you a monthly email, just kind of go and say, this is your footprint, these are the actions you're taking, and just kind of reminding you to kind of come back and tell us how you're doing. Now, one of the other things we thought was really important is you have a footprint, but you may live with other people who have a footprint too. Now, some of those items that you have, you share. So electricity in a household is a really good example. My household electricity doesn't just sit with me, it sits across all of the family. And so you have the ability to invite users, they can then set up their own accounts. And actually we've started using Giki Zero with some school groups, and kids are really, they really like it because it kind of gives them a way to talk with their parents about some of the big issues and put in some real data and see the impact. So if you've got other people that live with you, feel free to invite them, share the stuff that's shareable, and then talk about some of the actions you can take as a household together. So that's it. That was my intro. This is the link. If you click on it, it'll take you off to a sign up page. If you sign up, go through the onboarding. I'll maybe just give you a few minutes. If you've got any questions you want to talk about, just say it out loud. If you want to put it in the chat, I'll answer those too. And then maybe I'll come back in sort of 5 minutes or so, and then sort of maybe talk about a few little things you could do immediately, and then, yeah, take it from there. So sign up. Okay, so what I've done is just picked out a few actions that people can take to really start to reduce their impact. So just as an example, we talk a lot about recycling. Well, if people move from normal recycling rates, which are actually not too bad in this country, to recycling everything they can, then they can save another 100 kilos of carbon. If they do something like cut out all of their food waste, so go from wasting a lot of food to wasting virtually none, there's always going to be some, peelings and banana skins and eggshells, but as much as possible, you have a really big impact. You can cut out more than 200 kilos like that. Something like just turning the thermostats down in your house by 1 degree over winter. Again, another saving of nearly sort of over 150 kilos. But a really big one, and this is for sort of a person in a household, if you switch to green electricity, an average person can save up to sort of 400 kilos of carbon. So these are steps. Some of them are easier to do, some of them are harder to do, but you can kind of see how suddenly together do these 4 things and you're getting close to having taken a whole ton of carbon out of your lifestyle. And just maybe to look at something, sort of more specific area, something like clothing. So we all know that we buy a lot of clothing in the UK. In fact, the average person in the UK buys 35 items of clothing every single year. And that has a fairly high carbon footprint. It also has a really, really massive water footprint. For someone that manages to shrink that down to 10 or less, then that drops all the way down to 100 kilos. And obviously, if you buy half of your clothes secondhand, you can still buy tons, but without the carbon impact. So that can cut your impact dramatically again. So with the ones on the previous slide, as well as either maybe buying a bit of secondhand, buying fewer items, just with sort of 5 or 6 actions out of the more than 100 we've got, people can really start to make a very meaningful difference. And some of these are cheaper. Second-hand clothes, buying less clothes is a cheaper option than buying lots of clothes. Green electricity now costs normally the same as conventional electricity, and obviously turning your thermostat down saves money on your gas bills too. So this doesn't have to be something that costs more. Sustainability doesn't have to cost more. It's just about finding the right things that work for your lifestyle. So what could you do next? Well, you can go back into Giki Zero and keep on filling out your footprint. We've done all sorts of stuff, including bank accounts, holiday accommodation. It's quite fun to kind of look at some of the stuff and think about the impact it can do. Or obviously get started with some of the actions right now. And then when you've done them, don't forget to tick them off, because when you tick them off, 2 things happen. One is you'll get a badge, which is great for gamification and feeling good. You deserve that badge, you deserve a pat on the back. But the other one is for the more meaningful, sort of high impact ones, it'll also take you through to show you how that's reduced your impact. So if you move from a typical diet to a no red meat diet, you'll enter the new information and you'll see your footprint drop by a couple of 100 kilos. So that's it. Yeah, feel free to do any of those things, and do share it with anybody that you would like to. And also, if you've got any feedback, love you to email me or just put it into the feedback form, which is on the website as well. So basically, thank you very much for this evening.